Hello, welcome back to the NOTCAST, or if this is your first episode, welcome. I don't recommend starting here because I am talking through most of my favourite bands and their discographies in a chronological fashion. I have no idea if anybody else does this. If they do, they're almost definitely wittier than me. But the NOTCAST is a thing where I pick out a record that I love and I talk about it until I run out of things to say about it. And I often anecdote about my life at the time, however terrible it might have been. As you can tell by the episode title and the t-shirt, today I am talking about Manic Street Preachers, and I can't even remember how many albums this is into their career. I'm guessing 10, but I could be wrong. The album was released in late 2010. It is Postcards from a Young Man. And it's 24th of May, 2023 today. So I'm going to tell you a little something about my personal life that you don't know, which is today is my 22nd wedding anniversary. But that particular relationship lasted 1 year and 6 weeks, which is shorter by far than most tours by most bands at that time in history. Our relationship, including a marriage, lasted less time than Metallica's Black Album tour, Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion tour, Depeche Mode's Devotional tour, or in fact the singles release period for Michael Jackson's Thriller album. So, all things considered, not a great loss, to be honest. I haven't spoken to that person in person for 21 years and had no communication at all for something like 20 years. There was a time when we would communicate via solicitor, and as far as I know, they're somewhere on the planet doing something with somebody. No great loss to me, I must say. That person, as it turned out, it was, in my opinion, pretty remorseless, and most definitely a full-blown non-functioning alcoholic that kept that pretty well hidden from me. Right before the end, there was a period where they would disappear. I'd go to work, they weren't working, and they would disappear. My phone would be switched off, the car wouldn't be there, and they'd either come back very late at night, 11:30 or so, and be absolutely smashed, having driven back from wherever it was that they were, or not at all. And I was expecting at pretty much any point for probably the last 2 months to get a knock on the door telling me that they'd died in a car smash. Instead, we split up, which was less dramatic, but also slightly more protracted as a way of achieving a separation. Or as Arnie said in Total Recall, consider that a divorce. It was a strange and unusual time. I'm very glad that it's very far in the rearview mirror now. No idea why I told you about that, but there you are. Here we go. And today, instead, I am going to go back to my original subject matter, which is not what I thought I was going to spend 3.5 minutes talking about beforehand, was a relationship that came to an end over 21 years ago. This is Manic Street Preachers' album, Postcards from a Young Man, released in late 2010. We're going to start with the super mega ultra deluxe box set edition. I picked this up many years after release. It sold for over £100 when it started off. In the end, a website you may have heard of that rhymes with the words Duper Deluxe Edition was selling it for a significantly reduced amount of money, probably about 30 quid. Look at it. It looks like a type of thing where you get a shoebox, actually. Maybe Manic Street Preachers have put some postcards from a young shoe in there. No, they haven't. Oh well, as you can tell, my career in stand-up comedy was stillborn. The album, Postcards from a Young Man, was described by the band as one last shot at mass communication after the commercial resurgence of Send Away the Tigers and the determined Journal for Plague Lovers period. The band deliberately took a left turn after doing something very, very big and very populist, the Send Away the Tigers. They then went really perverse and weird and decided to do an album where they released no singles whatsoever. If you release no singles whatsoever, then of course you don't have any hits because you don't release any singles, so nothing can be a hit. It's a nice way of pretending that your commercial profile is not impacted by not releasing a single, and therefore you can't have any flops. But Postcards from a Young Man was not necessarily a U-turn, but it was a completely different approach. So normally we'd be having 2.5, 3.5 years between albums, with Sent Away the Tigers in early 2007, Journal for Plague Lovers in early 2009, and this in late 2010. You had 3 Manic Street Preachers albums in 2.5 years, which was an unprecedented work rate, even by the standards of the early part of their career. And they'd gone into the studio in late 2009 with the intention of making an album full of bangers, to use a very technical phrase, but probably more accurately, is to have that one last shot at mass communication, to either embed themselves in the popular consciousness as a band that was going to have hits and be successful and play arenas, or as a band that was going to basically say, that's it. Now, there's a theory that when a band exists for a period of time, and let's not muck about here. I'm bringing this out here because this is also part of the story. When a band exists for a period of time, the idea is that the first 10 years are almost definitely the most vital and the commercially most successful. If you look at a lot of acts, that is undoubtedly true. Everything the Rolling Stones did after around about 1981, which admittedly was 15 years into their career, seemed to be almost a rehash. AC/DC are widely regarded as the first 10 years as being the best. Same with New Order, depending on who you talk to. Not me. Same with Pet Shop Boys. Everything after Violator by Depeche Mode is regarded by some snobs as being rubbish. Nirvana didn't make 10 years, so that doesn't really matter. 2001 was when Nine Inch Nails were hit their 10-year period, so you could argue that actually that counts as well. The Cure's 10-year period expired with the closing notes of disintegration, so that the idea being that actually after your first 10 years, everything is downhill. For the Manics, the first 10 years came to a close in 2002 with the release of the forever delayed Greatest Hits album. And then this is like the 20-year marker of where the band were. So the fact that the band had been having a good amount of chart success for at the time of the release of Postcards from a Young Man, 19 years is pretty surprising, really. I think the band are now currently at about 32 years into their discography, so this is going back 13 years into their lives, and it was probably the last album where they had really substantial hits. Now, if you think about bands of a similar period or a similar age, as fan bases age and as bands change and as bands release, their 15th album, or they've been going for 35 years, the fans generally are old, not that interested in buying singles. They'll stream it, they'll listen to it, they'll go and pay a lot of money to see the concert ticket at the stadium, but they won't go and buy the single, which means that your big hits are always old. And you think about the first single from each album for acts like Pet Shop Boys, Depeche Mode, Manic. I don't think they chart. I don't know. I think the last time that Depeche had a charting single from the first song from the album was Wrong in 2009. I think Pet Shop Boys, the last one was Low Etc. in 2009 as well. For the Manics, it was probably to 2013. But generally speaking, as bands get older, they don't tend to have hits. They just tend to release albums and tour and all that type of stuff. And that is the way it is. Postcards from a Young Man is designed to be a concise, final kind of push for mass acceptance at a global level, almost like mass relevancy. And so they started off, the first single to be released from the album is It's Not the War. It's Not War, Just the End of Love. That's a heck of a mouthful for a single, which came out on a 7-inch and 2 CD singles here, each one of which features cover art of photographs of stamps. Now, the album called Postcards from a Young Man, the band used to send postcards back home, and then their families and friends would keep them, and these stamps kind of signify those communications from the band whilst they were on tour. So It's Not War, Just the End of Love, as a 7-inch there, backed with a track called I Know the Numbers. Even the label there is a photograph of some more stamps. So that's on the B-side of the release. And the B-side, I Know the Numbers, is not very good, truth be told. It's another B-side. In fact, if you take into account the album, which has 12 tracks on it, plus the 5 B-sides for each of the 3 singles, we're looking at something like 27, 28 songs per album, which is a lot of songs. Maybe not as many as Suede might have done, but 27 songs for a 1-album era is pretty comprehensive. And so what we do have there, alongside a number of the other B-sides, is there's a mixture of Nicky Wire solo tracks where clearly he's singing, not singing particularly well, instrumentals, songs that have been half thought out, and sometimes just James Dean Bradfield and a guitar doing a barely thought out lyric. CD 1 of It's Not War, Just the End of Love comes with Lost Voices. Lost Voices is probably the transition song between Journal for Plague Lovers' more abrasive post-punk and the more stadium-friendly sound of Postcards for a Young Man. And also we have the tracks here, I'm Leaving You for Solitude, great name for a song, Distractions and Ostpolitik. And Distractions is one of the songs that it does that old Grandpa Simpson thing of effectively moaning about the internet and how it's always there and it's always able to kind of distract you and bring your mind away from whatever it is that you're focused on at the time. Ostpolitik, as you can tell, not an immediate song. It's yet another Manics instrumental. There's quite a few of those as we go along. And so we get to the album, Postcards from a Young Man. Here's the original vinyl edition from 2010. I did used to have all of these sealed and was playing the CDs. And then during COVID, I kind of realised, actually, I've been saving all of these LPs for a rainy day. And we had a rainy year and a half, so I probably should listen to them. So I opened them and listened to them. The cover photograph there is an actor called Tim Roth. You will have seen or heard of him from Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and a number of other movies. Fantastic actor, doesn't get appreciated enough. This is obviously a photograph or a Polaroid that he's taken of himself as a young man, in the way that you would have someone like James Dean or somebody on the cover of an LP. And then standard black vinyl edition, by the way, because in these days we haven't got to having indie exclusives, special sleeves, or multiple colours of vinyl for a release. And each one of those 12 panels there on the inner sleeve is a postcard that is appropriate and linked to a song in the album. So, It's Not War, Just the End of Love, which went to number 28 in the UK pop charts, Pop Pickers, was a song that was effectively about the end of a relationship. Obviously, it's not war, just the end of love. And the idea being is that some people you are with forever and some people you aren't. And it has it's a fine song, very reminiscent of Your Love Alone Is Not Enough. It's got that whole kind of fast, big, bracing sound, a string section, and a very memorable chorus. But really the when the band came to having a number 28 hit single, which was a good number by their standards, it really felt like the band's time in the sun had ended. Sometimes bands are absolutely craving relevancy and hits in the pop charts when that is just something that nobody at that point in their career would have anymore. Not U2, not Depeche, nobody. And it's effectively, I mean, it sounds a little bit like a single by committee, if that makes sense, is that you've taken all of the individual ingredients from a Manic Street Preacher song that make it a great Manic Street Preacher song, and you've put them into one place, and you kind of hope that they work. You've got these big crunching drums, you've got this very melodic kind of guitar that sounds like a cross between AC/DC and Pink Floyd. You've got an orchestra, but it doesn't add anything new to the Manics experience. There's nothing in here where you listen to and you go, oh, they're doing something new, they're doing something interesting, they're going somewhere that they haven't been before. It's very similar in many respects to bands like AC/DC. It's more of the same. I remember Brian Ferry was once asked, well, why don't you write any new songs? And he said something like, there's only so many songs about swimming pools and supermodels that you can write, and I've written them all. For this, it is exactly the same. It's just another great Manic single. They're very good at it, but it doesn't say anything which hasn't been addressed in some form, either musically or lyrically, somewhere else in the band's body of work. Like a great many fantastic pop songs, it talks about the end of a relationship. That opening line, to feel forgiveness, you've got to forgive, for example. But at the same point, it's revisiting a very tired lyrical trope. So it feels a little bit cynical, a little bit brilliant at the same time, but a little bit cynical. And so second track on the album, and the third single, not the second single, the third single is the track Postcards from a Young Man. Again, this got a 7-inch release. It got 2 CD singles. It no doubt got a download version with an acoustic version or something on there. I think I'll go through the single release when you get to that point. But as a song, it feels a little bit as if it's the agenda song for the album. Thinking about songs like Send Away the Tigers. The Manics did do title tracks from time to time. Gold Against the Soul, for example. Everything Must Go. Send Away the Tigers, Postcards from a Young Man. These are songs which kind of clearly have the band laying out their stall and telling you, this is my truth. Tell me yours, but don't forget to buy our record. And what it is doing with this album is it's kind of reminding people, this is who I used to be. This is the songs that I used to make. This is the person that I once was. And those postcards from a young man, kind of like messages where you look back and you kind of take stock of your history, your identity, how you got to where you were. Because remember, if you don't know how you've got to where you were, you're still lost no matter where you are. And as the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai in the 7th Dimension, or the 8th Dimension said, wherever you go, there you are. It's a song about history and regression and the past as was, and who I used to be versus the me of now versus the me of then. And would the me now be proud of the me then, and is the me of then proud of the me of now? It's all those type of things about the relationship that we have with our history and the events that have formed us and turned us into who we are. The song addresses identity, history, control, but at the same point, musically, as I've said before, it doesn't break any new grounds, this album. What it's doing instead is it's quite regressive, it's quite restating of things, so it's looking back to a template that was set with songs like The Girl Who Wanted to Be God, for example, and Everything Must Go, which seems very influential on this album. And whilst I don't know it, I would be pretty confident in saying, although I am of course completely wrong, I was going to say it was produced by Mike Hedges, but it wasn't. Produced by Dave Aringa, Loz Williams and Manic Street Preachers at Faster Studios in Cardiff. So the band have become this self-controlled, self-autonomous, complete musical entity with complete control, as The Clash had it. And what they want to do is to sound like what they used to do 15 years before. Postcards from a Young Man is a really good song, by the way, and it has a wonderful refrain. One that when the first time I heard it, I was like, why haven't more songs addressed this lyrical conceit, this lyrical obsession? And the kind of refrain or the chorus or even the summing up of the album is the lyric that is, this world will not impose its will. I will not give up and I will not give in. It's a kind of saying that I am me, I am nobody else. I will walk unafraid, I will be who I am and what I am, and I will be proud about that, which is an important mission statement to have. I wish the band played Postcards from a Young Man live more often. Not that I would go and see them play it live, because I don't go and see them live these days, but it would make a fabulous song in a concert setting. I've seen them play it live. It was very, very good. Now, the third song off the album is the second single, by the way. It is, hang on a second, I just need to go. Oh, I'm whispering in your ear. Whisper in your ear on the right, whisper in your ear on your left. Who knows if the stereo actually works? That's a little bit of free AMSR for you. Oh, hello, hello. Now, that's freaky and scary, and I shouldn't have done it. So, second single from the album, third song on the album is Some Kind of Nothingness, presented here in 7-inch form. And this is a duet between the Manics and Ian McCulloch of Echo and the Bunnymen, who is blessed with the gift of a golden voice. By the way, the 7-inch single comes with a sticker that is signed by all the members of the band. I'm beginning to think that unsigned versions of some Manic singles are actually rarer than the signed versions, by the way. But if you order them from the Manics web store, you've got a whole bunch of signed stuff. I have a lot of autographed Manics thingies, including, I think, Postcards from a Young Man, by the way. The 7-inch single contains, if you ordered it from the web store, and just quickly check, a signed postcard by the 3 remaining members of the band. And it's got to the point now where I can tell how many autographs they'd signed by how legible or not the autographs actually are. Some Kind of Nothingness is, to me, it feels like the Manics are doing a very obvious attempt to kind of revisit Yes and UD by McCormick and Butler, A Design for Life, this huge, vast epic with a guest vocalist. Very reminiscent, by the way, of the track that they did for and with Kind of Nothingness called Some Kind of Bliss, that's on the fantastic and underrated Impossible Princess album. It's a strange song in so much as I'm not quite sure exactly what it's trying to tell, say, or communicate. But what it is it's trying to do this vast, sweeping, epic approach to whatever it is that they're trying to communicate in their one last shot of mass communication. And the lyrics to Some Kind of Nothingness are kind of very much around, Some Kind of Nothingness are around when you've reached the end of your search, whatever your search is, whatever your quest is, your vision thing, the object that you're seeking to attain, the truth is what happens when you've climbed the mountain, what happens when you've headlined the stadium, what happens when you've become the world champion. There is nowhere to go but down. And Some Kind of Nothingness is almost a kind of self-defeating admission of the fact that it's all downhill from here, baby. And there are, there's only, like all political careers, an ending in failure. You kind of make a decision around, well, actually, if I don't play the game, I can't win, so I'm going to stop playing the game, so that failure becomes a choice as opposed to an inevitability, which kind of ties in with the absence of singles in Journal for Plague Lovers. We have track 4 is The Descent, pages 1 and 2. It's the first very obvious Manics tour bus song, by the way. And I think any band that writes a tour song, whether it's Sad But True or The Descent or anything else, is you have to be really, really careful about how that lands with your audience. You got to remember, if you're playing to 2,000 people a night and there are 4 people in the band, that means that for every person who's on stage that night, there are 500 people that aren't. And the 500 people that aren't are probably going to be listening to you singing about the loneliness of hotel rooms and travelling and sleeping in a different bed every night and playing to thousands of people and kind of going, yeah, but I sit at a desk every day. I send emails every day. I have to deal with the same people every day, live in the same streets with the same food, wear the same clothes, earn the same amount of money. And don't you think that being able to make music for a living is perhaps a little bit better than having to, I don't know, sell oranges, for example. No criticism of people that sell oranges, but not many people when they grow up think, yeah, I'm going to be a guy that sells fruit, or I'm going to be a guy that does this. I mean, my professional existence it's not quite what I thought my professional existence was going to be when I was 20. When I was 20, I was hopeful that I'd be able to make a meaningful career in the arts. But instead of getting to be an artist and a poet and a writer, I got paid. And that's not a criticism, that's an economic reality. And if you don't have the safety net of the ability to fail, it's a one shot and you're done opportunity. Whereas you think about people that have got lots and lots of money, or perhaps have parents that are very rich that they can fall back on, they have multiple chances to fail. If you're in a band like Manic Street Preachers, for example, you get one chance, and if you fail at that, that's it. Your chance is gone. And of course, the first time you throw the dart, it's not always going to hit the bullseye. There are hundreds of people, some of the most talented people I have ever known, have had to get day jobs because the work that they did just didn't hit the sweet spot of commercial viability. And it's a great shame because you think of all the songs that have been unwritten, all the shows that have been unplayed, all of the experiences that people have not had because of the simple economic realities of the situation. And so if you get a song where you're moaning about a tour bus, you don't get much sympathy from me. Full fucking stop. And whilst as a song, Last Descent has a really interesting approach, it's whilst it's a bit rich as it's a travelogue, it also, by the way, the chorus, This Is My Last Descent, it has a descending melodic line that goes in it, as opposed to an ascending melodic line. Most choruses have an ascending melodic line that's meant to uplift you. By its very nature, the song is called The Descent, and therefore it's going backwards. By the way, I don't know if you can hear it. It's stopped now. Car alarm somewhere where I live had just been going off for a few seconds. In case you were wondering what that wee 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 noise was, it wasn't REM performing Leave up in the corner. It was just another car alarm. And I think there should be a law, whereas if a car alarm goes off for more than 4 minutes, you're allowed to smash the car to bits to switch the alarm off, especially in the middle of the night. I've mellowed in my old age. It used to be 1 minute. Track 5 is Hazelton Avenue. And Hazelton Avenue is a standout song on the album. It's nothing new. It's more a song about age and ennui and energy levels and experience. It's about the peace of the normal and, the comfort of being sad, the tranquility of boredom. I've had a life that has on occasions been very not boring. I really wish it had been boring and been less eventful. I was thinking this earlier about, as Matt Johnson sang on the Soul Mining album, I think, is Into Every Life a Little Rain Must Fall. I feel that my life has had more rainfall into it than most people's. There have been some really tough things that I've experienced. There's been what psychologists call complicated grief relating to the end of relationships and to significant loss. And complicated grief as a psychological concept is something that very few people actually experience. Somewhere between about 2 and 5% of the population experience at any point in the whole of their lives. And I'd rather that not have happened. I also had a couple of major health events relatively recently, one in August 2021, one in March 2023, both of which are quite worrying, but I've got the answers to what those are. I've made the lifestyle changes that affect those. So there's been a couple of breakups that have been pretty bad, and some deaths and all that type of stuff, and you think, well, in some lives, how many people, how often do people get made redundant? I got made redundant 3 times in 3 years. That was quite traumatic, for example. And I kind of think that some of the problems that I've had in my life have probably been more numerous than a lot of people's lives. And I wish my life had been quieter and more boring. Hazelton Avenue as a song is really about the comfort of that normality, of that stability, of that boredom. Hazelton Avenue, by the way, is a street in, I think, Ontario in Canada. And the song seems to be a little bit about basically just going to a record shop in a new town and buying records that you love by bands that you love. It's quite comforting. It's quite warm. It's quite nice to have that sense of kind of that sense of, I think I found it, whatever it was I was looking for. Track 6, side 1, Auto Intoxication. It's the most obvious song on the LP that sounds like a Journal for Plague Lovers. It's disjointed, it's shambolic, it's got an unusual structure, it kind of shuffles from one part to another, it's got multiple parts that sit within it, and the lyric is really around survival and self-empowerment. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the one that's at the very top is self-actualization, and the idea that success in an artistic sense really is survival as it comes, in whatever form it comes. You flip over to side 2 and you have Golden Platitudes. Golden Platitudes is the first song on side 2. It has a very interesting concept that goes with it. And what I've forgotten to do, by the way, and I've decided I should do it, is open up the box set because inside the box set, each song has a postcard that relates to a specific song on the album. And so rather than me just talking while showing you the picture of Tim Roth looking very, very hunky indeed, I'm going to get the postcards here, and I'm going to identify the songs and use them as prompts as we go through. This is It's Not the War, Just the End of Love, by the way, which has the lyrics on the back, the reproduction postcard. Oops. This is Postcards from a Young Man. That's the same postcard, which, by the way, is available in signed form on the 7-inch. This is the postcard for Some Kind of Nothingness that has the lyrics that go in it. This is The Descent, pages 1 and 2, which features Vancouver, not Ontario. And where he talks about, I wish I was home tonight, but the mountains are very pretty, nice fresh air. Postcard from Nick to his mum and dad, by the look of it. And then Hazelton Avenue there, which features, a record shop and some clarity. I don't need a wilderness to feel solitary. Which is wherever that is. I guess that might be a university. This is the postcard for auto intoxication, poisoning by a toxin formed within the body itself. Now, that is a very interesting concept lyrically. Think about, for example, where people become significantly ill with health conditions. Sometimes it feels like the body is trying to poison itself. Now, it could be a cancer, it could be multiple sclerosis, it could be any number of things. And in the interest of full disclosure, multiple sclerosis is a thing that is very, very close to my heart. A very dear person to me has it. It is life-changing, and it is where the body and the antibodies that attack infections and viruses and things like that misdiagnose healthy cells as unhealthy cells, and effectively the body attacks itself and self-cripples itself. It's an awful experience. I do not recommend it to anybody, and I'm not quite sure why I got to that from auto intoxication, but the idea of a poison in the toxin, or a toxin in the body that self-poisons itself. Now, you could argue that there are forms of behaviour that are self-destructive. We've all participated in those at some point in our lives. You know, there comes a point where you stop taking a drink and the drink starts taking you, for example, or other behaviours. But it is, of course, sometimes it's a choice and sometimes it isn't. This is the Lyceum Theatre in Newport in Wales. And the lyric, this one, is for the track Golden Platitudes. Golden Platitudes is, I think, an interesting lyric. The idea of platitudes not having necessarily a meaning, but it also ties into the concept of labour, and this is labour as selling your labour, by the way, not labour as a political party. Selling your labour for money as a way of selling out or buying in, depending on your point of view, but recognising the artistic realities and the commercial realities of the life that you live in and how you've got to live it. It's about power versus ethics and morality and the decisions that you make around who you are to become who you really are. Are you going to reconcile making those decisions and selling your time and effort for money in order to survive versus, you know, the ethics that you would have? Is that something which the younger version of you would be proud of? I always think you should live your life in a way in which the younger version of you would look at the older version of you and go, I like that fella. That's generally my approach to living life. Is not a bad one to take, unless of course the young version of you was a complete dickhead, at which point don't listen to him, he's wrong. We then have track 8, I Think I Found It. Now, the lyrics are by James Dean Bradfield, by the way, although the image is the Hotel Esplanade in Zagreb, Croatia, which I'm going to Zagreb in a couple of months. I'm going to see if it's still there, because I think that would be really interesting. Maybe I'm staying in it. I don't know. I'm going to find out. But the lyric is for I Think I Found It, was written by James. It was inspired by his meeting Mike Scott from the band The Waterboys, and about how he wrote a letter to Mike Scott when the Manics were just starting out. Oh, listen, it's a wanker with a motorbike. Vroom, vroom, fucking vroom, mate. No one's impressed, and no one thinks that you're a sex god because you've got a motorbike. So I told you sometimes I can be catty. Here I am. But I think I found it is effectively a lyric that is written about James's feelings after meeting Mike Scott, after having written Mike a letter as basically just a kid in Wales in 1985, and being inspired by the album and The Whole of the Moon and This Is the Sea and that period of the band's history. Which, by the way, Mike Scott kept the letter, remembered the letter, and when he met James, he kind of mentioned, "Oh yeah, I remember that letter that was sent to me." It's trying to capture a sense of joy and inspiration, a sense of aspiration that when you make or create great art, that somehow is more than the sum of its parts. It achieves something above and beyond merely, guitar and bass and drums, and it achieves a higher plane of existence where it's not just plus plus, it's also multiply, and then you get to, if you think about 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. You then go 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. That's where I think I found it comes to, is that sense of multiplication and the magic that happens when you have the chemistry within a band. Track 9, by the way, is A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun. And I must admit, I listened to this whilst walking to work a couple of months ago, 3 weeks ago. And there's a very interesting guest player on A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun. His name is Mr. Duff King of Beers McKagan. He's the bass player in Guns N' Roses, was in Guns N' Roses, then in Velvet Revolver, then in Loaded, then back to Guns N' Roses, and also very briefly in Jane's Addiction, actually, playing bass. And so although you wouldn't know by listening to it that it's Duff at all, you just go, oh, well, it's just a bass line. But I guess if you're in the Manics and you can get Duff to be your bass player for a song, you're going to ask him to do it, and he's going to do it, and it's going to be wonderful. The lyric "A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun" is probably the idea of, and based upon the idea. And by the way, this is it says it's a real photograph. It doesn't identify where it is. I'm guessing that's some brutalism somewhere. It's around the idea of every viewpoint is valid, not necessarily correct, but every viewpoint in a situation is valid. And it also addresses the concept of the tolerance paradox. Now, if you're from a philosophical perspective, you may not necessarily know what the tolerance paradox is. The tolerance paradox is around if you tolerate free speech that seeks to remove you from existence. That's where the tolerance paradox exists. And if you have to tolerate behavior that seeks to destroy you, you then cease to exist, and therefore you shouldn't tolerate that. And if you tolerate this, then your children will be next, as the lyric had it. It's a really interesting lyric. Is it new, original, insightful? Not massively, but it's memorable, I guess, because I could sing you the chorus right now, but I've heard my singing voice, and you don't want to hear me singing it. Track 10 is All We Make Is Entertainment. And here is a placard from the morality police, whatever they're telling you, which is enough money is wasted in drink and gambling to redeem industry from depression and the workless from despair. Which is a nice way. I don't know if you ever remember seeing that meme on the internet, which is lips that touch liquor will never touch ours. That type of thing. The idea of a morality police that tells you that you can't have fun, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't have sex, you don't dance, your mama don't dance, and your daddy don't rock and roll. All those kind of weird and unusual concepts around acceptable forms of entertainment, acceptable forms of expression, gamble on the horses, that type of thing. And think about it, especially the Conservative government have said a few things about, for example, some of their messaging has been around, we've cut taxes so you can play more bingo. And I'm sat there going, you really don't understand how people live, do you? You don't understand that in every street, in every village or every town in this nation, there is somebody who paints or writes songs or writes poetry, who does art just for the sake of making art. That's what they do in their spare time. They're not sat there going, I'm going to do bingo. The next John Lennon is almost definitely or the next Prince is almost definitely struggling about being forced into having to work at a fucking warehouse, because there is no way that economically they can survive if they actually allow their true talent, which is to sing or play guitar or to do whatever it is, because they need money, because that's how the world works. It's this weird morality police that tells there are only certain forms of entertainment or expression that are allowed and acceptable. And all we make is entertainment, is that idea of reducing art and saying you take away the meanings from the songs and you turn them into songs that you can sing whilst you're walking to and from work, that distract you from the horrors of the reality around you. In my opinion, art, when done well, is life-changing. It sheds light on things that previously had been in the darkness. It changes your perspective upon the reality in which you live. And it changes the way in which you live, and it makes your life easier, and it makes your life more sense. And a lot of the music that I love has been able to put me on a map when at other points in life I was lost. And but all we make is entertainment, which actually is a paraphrase of a statement by John Lydon at the beginning of Public Image, the band. It says, all we are is a soundtrack to mindless entertainment before you then go back to work, or something along those lines, which he said in 1978. It is not unintentional. The band are versed enough in literature and pop cultural history to know that is accurate. And it's a little bit self-mocking. It's like, all we are is entertainment, just, we only want to get drunk, that type of thing. But it's also around the homogeny inside the cultural voice. And you think about the diversity of opinions, of music, of musical styles. I've not seen Slayer or Mayhem or even Ghost on Later with Jules Holland, and they should be on there. You very, very rarely see a hardcore dance act. I think Underworld have been on once, Orbital might have been on once, but you don't get to see people like Fortet, for example, on Later with Jules Holland. You think about all the other types of music that are absolutely fantastic that just aren't getting heard because Robert Plant is on for the 16th fucking time, because there's a cultural homogeny where what they try and do is they try and kind of reduce your access to things that are different or unusual, in the same way that brutalist architecture and house architecture is very dull and very boring and very, very functional, because if they allowed people to live in environments that actually showed the true ability of the humans to express how weird and quirky they are, they might, God forbid, think for themselves, and something might change. We can't have something changing because the rich are able to keep everybody else not rich, so that we're all too knackered at the end of the day to do anything apart from buy fucking Ed Sheeran and BTS albums. BTS, much better than Ed Sheeran, by the way. Yes, Ed Sheeran, I am of the opinion you're not great. You're probably a lovely guy, but I don't like your music. Track 11 is The Future Has Been Here Forever. This is a postcard of the one of the first period of the Manics, when they were a trio with Nicky, Sean and James in about 1985 or so. This is before Richie joined, before Flicker was very briefly in the band, and before when we were young, when our smiles were genuine, as I said in The Everlasting. Sean plays trumpet on this track, Nicky Wire sings it. It's not amazing. I'm quite glad to have not seen them play it live. And then the last track, track 11, is Don't Be Evil. Here is the postcard for Don't Be Evil, which, according to the postcard, it doesn't tell you where it's from. It looks like, actually, I'm pretty confident in saying that looks like Cardiff Bay, actually, because I saw Popleat itself in that bay in 1992. And if I remember correctly, Popleat itself played about here. And now the Doctor Who Visitor Centre is around about there, I think, actually, although I could be wrong. This is this is the last song on the album, Don't Be Evil. It takes its title from the motto used by Google until 2018, Don't Be Evil. It's a fairly standard rocker, and in fact, so if you look at the documentary on the DVD that comes in the deluxe edition of the album, which I will open shortly, it's listed as a B-side. It's a fairly standard rocker. It feels to me that the reason that it is track 12 on the album, it doesn't feel like the conclusion of the album. When you listen to it, it feels like, oh, that's it. The album's over already. Okay, I guess. Well, so be it. But What we do have instead is, by having 6 tracks on each side of the album, you have a symmetry, and the album ends, there it is, with Don't Be Evil. It's not a great song at all. It's thoroughly average. It does the job, and it does the job quite well, like Born to Raise Hell by Motorhead, but it's not amazing at all. That is Postcards from a Young Man by Manic Street Preachers. I think it's their 10th studio album. As I've said before, there are a number of different formats of the record. There was the promotional CDR, which has a slightly different mix of the album on, that's watermarked, and by the looks of it, yeah, my CDR's got a crack in it, which I picked up for about £1.50 many years ago. There was a double CD version of the album that came in this cover, and features photographs of various things. It also features on CD2 the original demos for the album, which is effectively alternate versions. It's not that exciting. You've got the photographs from a notebook here, which details things like airmail, draft versions of lyrics, photographs which could have been used for other tracks and B-sides. Again, it's a nice little package, but it is outstripped by the deluxe edition of the LP, which I'll get to later on, and some photographs of the band in it as well. It says on there, "Prepare for failure," which kind of indicates that the band kind of know that they are not going to make a success out of it. It features a quote from Ralph Hutter from Kraftwerk, by the way, which is, "We need concentration and silence because our music comes after silence. It has to do with thinking and reflections. It has to do with that post-zero situation," which is a fascinating idea there. We've got the lyric there for Some Kind of Nothingness, and also one called Man in a Tree, which wasn't used. The lyric to I Think I Found It, you can tell the handwriting is different there. Again, photographs of Polaroids. This one for auto intoxication here. Some other images that we've got, drawings, lists, and ideas. A picture or a drawing of a photograph of the band plus the Who's logo. Clearly the band selling themselves as fans. Old passport type photographs of the band when they were younger and had full heads of hair, or just hair full stop, and so be it. I thought this version was signed, but it isn't, so I guess it probably isn't. There's also the second CD. There is all the demos. So taking that to one side, the other edition of the album is the Super Deluxe box set, super duper version here, which this is a monster. I've shown you a bit of it already. Let's go for a tour, shall we? Let's strap ourselves in and see what happens next. So, isn't that a nice satisfying sound as you take the lift off the cover? And then of course there is the book, which has the postcards in themselves. There is also, and let's get to this later because this is particularly impressive. There are 2 CDs here. There is the album itself, 12 tracks there. There is the DVD, The Making of Postcards from a Young Man, which is half an hour, and features lots of interesting stuff in it. You get the demos, but you don't get the demos on CD, you get the demos on a cassette. And of course, the cassette features a different and alternate Nicky Wire demo of, I think it's got It's Not War, Just the End of Love on there. It might be on there. I could be wrong. I don't particularly care. I've never listened to this cassette. I've got a cassette player. I just don't use it because I just don't. And I'm going to put that in there. And then, so what you do, by the way, is if you want to get everything, you have to buy the deluxe edition box set in order to get the DVD and the cassette of demos. But you also need to buy the 2 CD version to get the demos on CD, which is obviously the dominant format. Now, if I was doing this now, I probably would have put that over there because I'm not quite sure if I ever want to see Tim Roth's nipples. I'm not sure he wants to see his nipples either. But what we also do is get a reproduction of one of the band's notebooks. which features notes, words, lists, ideas and stuff. This is a lovely bit of work because it's textures. It's clearly cost a lot of money to make, and the print run is very limited. I think there are 1,000 of these. It's got the manifesto for the album. It's got on there. It's got the LP tracks, for example, the guitar checklist for the album. It features a lot of quotes from various people. It's a large format version of what is effectively presented as photographs on the 2 CD version. You've got some extra photos there. You've got the lyrics to Postcards from a Young Man. You've got again the lyrics to Platitudes there, and this one is some sheet music. You've got It's Not War, Just the End of Love, and some unused lyrics as well, I believe. Post-colonial soul, which presumably could be another bit of a manifesto. You've got Auto Intoxication, Hazleton Avenue, Don't Be Evil listed there, potential song titles, alongside a mock-up of the LP sleeve there, which has been stenciled on. That thing about prepare for failure again. Some more photographs. This one says Hatred and Failure because they're a cheery band like that. The lyrics to Some Kind of Nothingness. The lyrics to, it says Pretty Hate Machine up there, but cross out the names of some of the songs. A gigantic, what looks to be a wooden dog. Some photographs of James with the dog. There's what looks to be Sean and James during the recording. Handwritten lyrics too. I think I found it, not actually handwritten, but reproductions of it. Hazleton Avenue, Auto Intoxication, also known as Exit. Wipe those tears away. Keep as still as you can. Again, more photographs, ideas, concepts. The reproduction of the pages which you've already seen. Lyrics to Don't Be Evil. Photograph of a postcard. Photograph of a Polaroid. Passport photos. And then a binder to put it. It's a lovely package. Not worth £100, but a lovely package nonetheless. But it does take up an awful lot of real estate on your shelf. So I put it somewhere else on my shelves because it can't fit where it's meant to be. So second single, as I think I've mentioned, is Some Kind of Nothingness. Hello, with Ian McCulloch. And that on the 7-inch is, this was released on the 6th of December 2010. And it was backed on the 7-inch with a track called Time Ain't Nothing. We have a couple of CD singles here as well. So we have this one here backed with Some Slow Reflections and Strange Delays, which is effectively a James Dean Bradfield solo track, but also a kind of a recognition of the fact that Richie had been missing for 15 years at this point and was starting to cross the line over into being able to be declared legally dead. It's a dark and grim but necessary fact of reality. And then there's a second CD which is backed with the tracks Broken Up Again, Red Rubber and Evidence Against Myself. Red Rubber sounds like a spaghetti western with electro influences, and it also features a quote from Andrew Dworkin: the worst immortality is to give up and give in, and the world will not impose its will. I will not give up and I will not give in, from the song Postcards from a Young Man. So it all kind of loops together. There's a degree of thought and self-referentiality that exists within that. The third single released from the album, and this was on the 28th of February 2011, was Postcards from a Young Man, the title track. And as I mentioned before, if you bought it from the band's web store, you got a signed postcard of the what looks to be the Castle Hill and Harbour in Tenby in Wales, signed by the members of the band there. Hello, it's my signatures. A 7-inch is backed with a track called The Passing Show, which is sung and mostly performed by Nicky Wire. Something gave me the impression that they sat around and went, well, they just recorded lots of tracks, and then they went, okay, we'll put your solo track on the B-side. Suede did it with Weight of the World and Digging a Hole, by the way. Or was it something else that wasn't? Anyway, it doesn't matter. CD single of Postcards from a Young Man. 2-track CD single, £1.99, featured a track called Passing Sun, or more correctly Midnight Sun, which was recorded in 2001 for the Know Your Enemy album. And then there's a 4-track CD single backed with Inky Fingers, which was inspired by Ronnie Lane from, I can't even remember what band he was in, and Engage With Your Shadow, which is basically filler with weird lyrics, and a track called Kiss My Eyes for Eternity, which is melodic but not exactly memorable. And that brings up all 27 tracks that we've got from the album Postcards from a Young Man by Manic Street Preachers. I was thinking I might talk about National Treasures, which was the album which closed off the end of 2011. But I think I will bump that into the Rewind the Film period, because you've had 56 minutes of me talking about the Manics already. That's quite a long time indeed. And I think I'm going to break here actually at the end of the album. So this whole period was done and dusted in about a year. You had the album in a multitude of formats, and you had lots of other kind of various bits in the band's kind of collection. And when you do a 10th album, you've got to think long and hard about, am I saying something worth hearing? Am I saying something that's relevant? Is it any good? Why am I doing this? Because surely if you're doing it just out of habit, that's not a good reason to create art. And there are some songs on this album and in this period where it feels like the Manics are saying something but don't really have anything much to say. Some of them are quite good. Some of them I've grown to over time. But some of them, Auto Intoxication, for example, and The Future Will Be Here, Has Been Here Forever, I've totally forgotten those songs. And you should never have an album where songs on the album are forgettable, because it's going to be difficult to convince anybody to buy those songs if you listen to those songs and you love that band and you can't remember the fucking songs. I think this would be better as a 10-track LP. If that would be the case, I'm going to take Don't Be Evil off and possibly Auto Intoxication. Not quite, and then I'd probably put an acoustic track on and then close the album off like that, because I don't think a Manics album is closed with an acoustic track yet, apart from, actually no, I don't think it has, but I guess I'm going to find out soon. If maybe I'll find out on the next one, Rewind the Film, that that's the case. So it's been a long hour. Thank you for listening to me talk about this band for 58 minutes. I'm going to wrap up here. Take care of yourselves and each other. As the late great Jerry Springer once said, stay beautiful, as the Manics said, and I will hopefully see you all soon. Okay. Oh, I've forgotten how to end it. How do I end it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring it nearer the screen, and then it's going to look dramatic. There, that's a bit of excitement for you. Thank you for watching, and hopefully, if this is your first time, please come again. All right, bye.